Hello, you are listening to On the Topic, and this week I'm going to be breaking the fourth wall. Yes, I'm talking to you, the listener, yes. I'm Dan.
And I'm having my end away with the devil from Hell's Kitchen. I'm Alex. And this week we have got a wonderful series review of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. But before we get into that, Dan, what have you been up to?
So I've been on annual leave, had a week off to recharge my batteries.
Oh, beautiful. Get up to much?
Do you know what? We started watching the Mission Impossible films. So done 3 out of the 6 so far. And do you know what? I didn't realise how good the first one was until I rewatched it. Because I always thought it was pretty terrible, but actually it's quite good. Some nice twists and turns, good action sequence, proper 90s film.
Yeah, and although you kind of know the plot twist at the very end of the film, I still think it's got some charm to it. I still think it's worthwhile watching it again. Because you obviously know what the ending's, right? I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's listening. But you kind of have an idea about what's going on. But there's still some really good set pieces, right? It's not just you've seen it once and you won't see it again. So you see 1 to 3, I guess, in order.
Yep.
What's your favourite so far? Because they're all distinctly different films, right? They all feel different. They all shot different. They've got different directors. I've watched them since the first one. Didn't go to cinema, but I think I was too young, maybe. Didn't go to cinema, but I was following it very closely. And I watched the rest on DVD and in cinema later. And I'm not up to date, so I'm a closet fan is what I'm saying, Dan. So I'm really interested to hear what you're saying. Favourite out of 3 so far?
I'm going to say, just for action purposes, I really enjoyed the third one.
Yeah, it's good.
Thought it was phenomenal. Second one, good action sequences, but I just found the storyline a little bit predictable. Maybe that's just me. Me and my other half are going, oh yeah, this is going to happen. And then it would happen. But the third one, again, they sort of went back to the twists and turns, sort of left you sort of guessing. So no, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, good.
Drunk plenty of beer, of course. Watched Pompey win on TV, which is a first for a while.
Yeah,
we don't ever seem to do well. And I've been reading Spider-Man Beyond.
Oh, right.
Written by Zeb Wells and Saladin Ahmed. Phenomenal story. So it's 4 volumes if you pick up the graphic novels. And basically what happens is Peter Parker gets taken out by the UFOs. Not UFOs, that's UFO, so UFOES. Ends up in hospital. And his clone, Ben Reilly, who's been knocking around since the 90s, since that terrible clone saga.
Oh, yeah.
Part of the Beyond Corporation, takes the mantle of Spider-Man.
Oh.
So I'm only just sort of into volume 2, but the artwork is just stunning. It's beautiful. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head who does the artwork, but yes, it's a triple D. It's a ding-dang delight.
Oh, good.
But no, I suppose that's really it for me. Otherwise, back to work, busy week, picking up the backlog of work. What about you, Alex? What have you been up to?
Finished The Mole on Netflix. I talked about that, I think, in the last episode, maybe one before that. I don't want to turn listeners off. It is a reality TV, but it's a game show, kind of Crystal Maze type whodunit. Difficult to really describe. It is quite unique, but it's very good. And it wasn't who I thought. So I'm not sure whether I'm not a very good super sleuth, which doesn't bode well because we're both busy at the weekend doing an escape room and we need to be on our game and very observant and question everything. And apparently I'm not very good because I didn't guess them all, but it might even be the directing producer of the show. So I won't be too hard on myself and we'll see how we fare on the weekend. But that was very good. I can hugely recommend them all. 10 episodes, I think, give or take. Good fun. And then I tried to watch The Manifest, didn't I, Dan?
Oh, yeah.
And I was really excited.
Netflix picked it up, rescued a cancelled TV show. Good episode to go check out because I actually aired my fears for it back then before it did get cancelled. And of course, season 4 and the final series is on Netflix. I haven't started watching it yet. I need to.
Well, I started watching and I'm actually due. Episode 1 is amazing. And certain things happen. I thought, well, it's a bit odd that you're not really introducing the cast, but sometimes they do that. You know, sometimes they just get into it and you work it out. They don't spoon feed you. That's fine. And then this female character had a premonition, and then another cast member, another character, didn't question that she just phased out, and then knew what she was doing, oddly, and then she ran off. I was like, well, there's something gone wrong here, and I went back on Netflix, and it said season 4, episode 1. Well, that's no fucking good to me, Dan, is it? Because I haven't seen episode 1, season 1, but they haven't got any of the previous seasons on Netflix, and I'm looking everywhere for it. So that, I guess, of course, to you, Dan, but also to our listeners, if no one can find me a bloody season 1, episode 1 link that ideally is semi-legal, then I'd much prefer to do it that way and stream it. But at the minute, I'm hard pressed to try and start what a lot of people have lauded as a really good series. So anyway, bit disappointing. But yeah, I'll find something else to watch, I'm sure. So that's, I think, the other thing I was going to say was I'm making my way through Gotham Knights.
Oh yeah, I know.
So on next gen consoles, there was a bit of controversy before it was released. People were saying, it's not 60 frames per second, 60 FPS. It's 30, and 30 was variable. And a lot of people were saying because of that, there was some challenge whether it was a current gen console worthy title. A lot of people say, it's Xbox One or it's PS4 worthy. I disagree, because actually, yes, okay, 60 frames per second would be lovely. I'm sure they'll release it at a later date, but for what it is, it works well. It still looks good, and it plays very well. And I think there's somewhat of a cancel culture now with gaming. Ever since it happened with Square Enix's Avengers, which we've much maligned and we've talked about it, we have been disappointed. I haven't gone back since. You've since sold it. I think people want to almost cancel or be against games before they even release. And I get that we need to hold publishers and developers accountable, but it's more often than not the publisher that's pushing the devs to the limit, to the deadlines, and pulling all-nighters and months of underpay and stress and the rest of it, because it's just not well managed. And actually, it's the publishers who need to get a stick to the face. And that's the example of EA. EA are always behind really, really good titles because they bought the rights to publish, but they ruin them because they get them out too late, or they're delayed, or they patch them on day 1, day 5, day 10, and the games are just not delivered properly. And as I say, I get that people are holding these companies to account. A new title is 60, 70 quid, $70, $80. This is a lot of money. So we do need to be challenging the industry to give us quality. Back in the day, Dan, you had an N64, didn't you? Were you an N64 person?
Yeah, N64, okay. PlayStation 1.
Okay, so you had, and it still applies actually for PS1 and PS2. You got your disc, you got your cartridge, you put it in your console, you press play, and that's the game.
Yep.
There's no DLC. There's no day 1 download. There's no patching. You get quality. You get what you're given. You pay 50 quid for it, $65, but you get the game. Nowadays, you start playing the game, either digital downloads, what I tend to do, or you get the disc in, and you have to download the patch even before you play the damn thing.
Yeah, you install the bloody game, and then it's like, I need to do an update. It's like, for fuck's sake, I've just waited an hour for this game to install, and now I'm waiting for another bloody patch to go in.
And now bug fixes and patches are a thing of the PC world, and people listen to this who are PC users and always have been of the PC master race they want to call themselves. And I'm agnostic because I play PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. I'm really fortunate that I can do that. But I'm agnostic. And I know PC people say, well, that's always the thing. It's always been that way. And that's fine, but it shouldn't be. If you're an indie dev, I get it. But when you're these AAA titles, these large publishers, why are we having this experience? It's because they're rushing. They're not probably managing the stakeholders, not managing the shareholders properly. It's got to be out in a certain window because they've got certain sales projections. And I get all that, but get the timeline right properly, get the right staffing, get the right skill sets and get a quality game out. Because otherwise, you get an Anthem. Otherwise, you get an Avengers. And these titles just keep on coming out. But anyway, long story short, rant over, soapbox down. Gotham Knights is enjoyable. I'm having fun. It's great, and it's DC, which we tend both of us not to dabble in. And it's a lot of good fun, kicking the crap out of baddies in a sandbox city, and randoms are dropping in as other characters, beating the crap out of these mobsters and gang members with you, and then they just drop out and they come and go. It's really, really lots of fun. So I can recommend it. It floats my boat. I've probably said way too much and spent too much time talking about that, but I just thought I'd share what I'm up to, and those are things that occupy my time at the moment.
Lovely. So shall we dive into She-Hulk?
Let's do it. Let's get all angry. Let's shed our clothes. Let's turn purple or green, and let's get into it.
Well, we better ring the klaxon, dust it off. This is your spoiler alert. And you have been warned. So if you're still listening and you get all the spoilers, well, that's on you.
It is, because we're actually about 4 and a bit weeks after the last episode was aired. So there's not an awful lot of excuse, really, because they've left it quite a long time in today's world before we start talking about these things. So, yes, be warned, from here on in, we are going to be talking about anything and everything to do with this series.
Indeed. Right, bit of the premise, bit of the plot. She-Hulk Attorney at Law is a mini-series created by Jessica Gao for the streaming service Disney+. Now, this is the 8th television series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it follows Jennifer Walters, a single attorney in her 30s, who also becomes the 6'7" green superhero She-Hulk. And if you want to do that in meters, that's 2.01. And she's a lawyer specialising in cases involving superhumans. Onto the cast. Big cast, this, Alex.
It is.
Quite a lot. So we've got Tatiana Maslany starring as Jennifer Walters, or the She-Hulk.
She's brilliant.
Jamila Jamil as Mary McFerrin, or Titania. Ginger Gonzaga as Nikki Ramos. We see the return of Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner / the Smart Hulk. Josh Segarra as Augustus Pugliese. I think I'm doing this justice. I'm having a good week, apparently. Mark Lynn Baker as Morris Walters, which I think is Jennifer Walters' dad.
It is.
Tess Malice Kincaid as Elaine Walters, Jen's mum. The return of Tim Roth after many, many years as Emil Bronsky / the Abomination. Megan Thee Stallion as herself, a pop star that I was completely unaware of.
Yeah, same.
Benedict Wong as Wong, the Sorcerer Supreme. We've got Renee Elise Goldsberry as Mallory Book. John Bass as Todd Phelps, or the Hulk King. Reese Quarro as Donny Blaze, not to be confused with Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider. This is a fake motherfucker. Griffin Matthews as Luke Jacobson. Now, this is one of my favourites. Put everything in my notes. Patty Guggenheim as Madison King, with 2 N's, 1 Y, but it's not where you think. And of course, you've had the spoiler alert, Klaxon. Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock / Daredevil.
Indeed.
And Jessica Gao serves as head writer, with Kat Quaro leading the directing team. And then on to the executive producers, of course, Kevin Feige, Louis D'Esposito, Victoria Alonso, Brad Winderbaum, Kat Quaro, Jessica Gao, and Wendy Jacobson. That's a lot.
It is.
I don't know what the budget was. It must be a few mil, right?
Yeah, I can imagine it's the production value was pretty good. I'll have a quick look whilst we're talking, but I can imagine it's a lot of dollar.
Oh, probably is. So we'll go through the episodes. We started to sort of change our format a little bit, so we sort of go through each episode, talk about our favourite bits, least favourite bits throughout these conversations, and of course, for these MCU series, I've got some Easter eggs as well.
225 million. Dan.
225 million.
Yeah, 25 a pop.
Oof.
Would change.
I mean, I suppose that's going to be, making Tatiana Maslany, who's quite a petite woman, into a 6'7" giant.
Yeah, and it's about 100 to 150 shy of a movie, right? A movie's what 400 mil now these
Yeah.
days, is it? So I think they got a return on investment. So yeah, it's a fair amount of cash apparently.
Right, on to episode 1, a normal amount of rage. So before a court case, lawyer Jennifer Walters tells the viewers about an incident a few months earlier. So, of course, it's where she first breaks the fourth wall. She's been doing it since the 1980s in the comics, ladies and gentlemen. So, no, this is not her stealing Deadpool's limelight. So, come at me. A few months earlier, where she and her cousin Bruce Banner were in a car crash after an encounter with a Sicarian spacecraft. Now, we haven't seen the Sicarian since Thor Ragnarok.
No, we haven't.
While attempting to get Banner to safety, Walters was cross-contaminated with his blood, causing her to transform into a Hulk. Very different to the origin story in the comics, from what I remember.
Do you know how she in the comics transforms?
So very similar in a car accident, but she ends up getting a blood transfusion from Bruce. Yeah. So okay. I suppose a cool way of mix up a little bit.
Yeah, because I guess in the MCU world, he'd never do that because he just knows what. I mean, they never talk about the risk of him coming into contact with other human beings.
I think he does actually in Avengers: Age of Ultron. Because
does he?
Natasha's sort of obviously sort of quite into him. He said, look, I can't. I'm radioactive. I think it's when they go back to Hawkeye's house and
yeah. It might be inferred. Oh yeah, because they said they could be together and she couldn't have kids.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's so risk averse that he would never do a blood transfusion. He'd always try and find someone else. So it kind of makes sense. It was by accident because the Bruce Banner we know would never let that happen. So it kind of naturally makes sense to fit that into this world.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a cool origin story for the screen, but I'm sure there's the thing I find about social media. There's no middle ground. Like no one really sort of looks at it like us, where it's a different medium of storytelling, and you just sort of just take it what it is. Take it with a grain of salt. Unfortunately, you've got the staunch comic book readers that, this isn't true to the comics. And then you've got the casuals, which are like, we want this, we want that. Why is this happening? And then you've got the dickheads in between that go, why are we being woke? Blah, blah, blah. Can a character be woke if she was created in the 1980s? I don't know. I'm just moaning for the sake of moaning.
But no, it's true. It's true. I think people, when you look at these things, you can't look at it as you say, Dan, I think you're quite right. You can't look at something that's created back then and port it into now. We've moved forwards. You just can't do it. Some things which were on screen, were being read, were being illustrated, would not, quite frankly, be gotten away with today.
No,
it's just not a thing.
It is happening across all boards now, and I get it. People are out there, they want representation.
100%.
And if I was part of, those minorities, then I think I'd want that representation too. How many black kids went mad when Black Panther came out? They finally had a superhero representing them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a phenomenal film anyway. So
yeah, it's quality. But no, you're right. You're quite right. I personally don't subscribe to this woke thing, not because it's popular to be against it or to be for it. It's just I don't see that. I see it as art and culture go with the times. It's representative of now. And then fast forward 20 years time, it'll look and feel different, and we'll say, well, why were we celebrating that? And it'll be reiterated. It will change, and that's the right thing to do. So I think you need to change with the times. You can't create something like for like from the 80s because it's just a different wilder time, Dan.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I look at some of the stuff that was out in the 90s. You just wouldn't get away with it now. It would be cancelled within blink of an eye.
Yeah, 100%.
So after the car crash, Bruce takes Jen to a secret laboratory in Mexico, where he trained her to control her new powers. She was able to effortlessly handle his training regime, but she rejected the idea of becoming a superhero full time. Now, Bruce tried to stop her from leaving, and the two fought until Banner reluctantly accepts Walter's wish to return to her legal career. Now we head back to court, where Jen is interrupted by superpowered influencer Titania, just casually, violently bursting through a wall, apparently, whilst fleeing from her own trial. Jen transforms, smashes Titania in the face, and returns to normal to make her closing argument. Strong first episode, Alex. What are we saying about this?
So good so far. I mean, the CGI was a little bit ropey. It's not top drawer CGI either, by the way, Dan. So they spent a lot of money on this, but I wouldn't say it's bad. But when you look at Banner Hulk, which you've been used to, even he may have been slightly degraded, but the quality of that facial capture compared to Jennifer Walters, it's night and day. And I don't know why they didn't do what they did with Ruffalo as they did with Maslany. Did it cost too much money? Is it because it's refined over time? But she still looks like Shrek.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, just my opinion, it's not as bad as it was when the trailer first came out and they refined it and made it better, but you kind of got the Sonic treatment, right? But it's not great. And when you're fighting, really enjoyable scenes, slapstick, they're pulling their punches and decided to let rip and they really were fighting. And that was really cool. But then you get this refined version of Hulk fighting a new version of a smarter, trendier looking Shrek. I just still found it a little bit jarring.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, but visually just a little bit off.
My other half said that when we first watched the episode. I mean, she loves She-Hulk. She's got loads of graphic novels and stuff. And she was really excited for this. So when she saw the initial trailer, which I think was rushed because the release date was leaked, wasn't it? And we obviously got this horrendous trailer. And obviously they have spruced up, but there isn't enough definition on her face. You know what I mean? Like, no. There's not really any wrinkles, or you don't get the crow's feet when she smiles and all that stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's just not, it's just very polished. You need to give these characters a bit of definition.
Like, it could be lifted straight from the game. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. It looked good, and if it was in the game, fine. But we know they can do better. And this is where I think in recent times, and this does date the podcast episode somewhat, but I think CGI studios have even complained and said they don't really want to work with Marvel because they have really aggressive development timelines. I'm not sure if you read this down, but they're saying that they're overworked, not underpaid, but they're overworked, and they've got they're pulling all-nighters for months to get the work out. And because of the nature of the films, there's a lot of CGI. And then you've got to do reshoots, and you've got to then CGI those reshoots invariably at the end of the production. And then you don't have an awful lot of time then to mix in the music and the sound effects and post-production, do all that lovely, amazing, great stuff, and then animate it and then work together. And so a lot of art studios are saying although it's good money, it's crazy because the targets and the deadlines are just nuts. And I wonder whether this suffered from that. I don't know. I'm sure for subsequent seasons, which I'm sure will come, it will look better and be far improved. But I think they ran out of time.
I think they probably had to collect a lot of data as well, from what I understand. I haven't seen the making of She-Hulk on Disney Plus yet, but apparently Tatiana Maslany was walking around with a pole sticking out of her back with a She-Hulk head on top of it to give it that 6'7". So I think as well, they're trying to do something new. It's not something I'm sort of familiar with from previous films. It's quite unheard of. So is this a new thing that I had to try and get their heads around? It suffered from that as well. Perhaps, but then how many female actresses are out there as 6'7"?
Yeah, quite.
Anyway, on to episode 2. I've got some Easter eggs in this one. So Jen gains some public attraction after defeating Titania and is dubbed She-Hulk. Not quite sure what happened there. I think I forgot my teeth. However, the case is declared a mistrial after the defense successfully argued that her fight with Titania influenced the jury, and she is fired from the district attorney's office. So she's jobless.
Oh, no.
Here's your Easter eggs. So whilst Jen is job hunting after she gets fired from the district attorney's office, we see a glimpse of the website she's looking at, which is a listicle of offbeat jobs. The site is loaded with huge blink and you miss it Easter eggs. And I did find one of these. I didn't see the other. First, the ad at the top right corner is selling a type of shoe called Iron Man 3s.
Ooh.
Jen lives in the world with Avengers-themed Ben and Jerry flavors, so it's not surprising that there are now shoes named after Iron Man. But the name could also be referenced to Iron Man 3. I mean, whoever wrote the article to give that Easter egg, I just put whatever. Bit pointless. But this is the big stuff. Now, I didn't see this one. I only found it when I was going through a bit of research. Beneath it, we see two headlines. Now, the first is Man Fights with Metal Claws in a Bar Brawl. Now, this is clearly a reference to Wolverine, and it must mean that a Logan exists somewhere in the MCU.
Yes, mutants are already amongst us.
The second headline, so this is the first time we actually call back to the Eternals. Why is there a giant statue of a man sticking out of the ocean? Now, of course, the celestial Tiamat starts to rise out of the ocean, but then Cersei turned him to stone because his birth would destroy the planet. And that's the only time we've had any reference to the Eternals since, when did it come out? Last year?
Yeah, and we talked about this, didn't we, when we were talking about phase 4 and what's going to happen since and all the rest of it. And I there's a lot to unpack, and I struggle with when we talk about the Eternals. It's an interesting but really troubled film. But ultimately, a lot of people say there's a big bloody guy sticking out of an ocean, out of the world into space. How have we not heard about this? How has it not been referenced? So this might be a way to kind of subtly appease the fans whilst having a get out. So that I think Eternals 2 is just about all but being confirmed. They haven't quite committed to it, but I think they're close to. And I think the cast are a little bit missed because they're kind of left in the air as much as we have. But if they were ever not going to do an Eternals 2, which is feasible because of the box office takings, it was in pandemic, but still, they could always go, well, I've made reference to it in She-Hulk, we're done.
Yeah.
But people may have missed it. Whereas I think actually they're near enough committing to it, so it's going to probably make more of a reference in the films. But yeah, it's nice to see they're kind of committing to it, because otherwise the Eternals been a standalone film, and that's it. We've got no sight of Mahershala Ali's Blade. That's an indefinite hiatus.
Yeah, we've lost another director. He's getting fed up and seems to be on the back burner. And I genuinely, for the first time, fear for an MCU project.
Yeah, I really don't know where it's going to land. I don't know if we'll see any other franchise that has arisen from that film. It's all remains to be seen, which is a nice thing, right? I don't want to know everything. We already know about end of phase 4 and beginning of phase 5, the big Avengers films. That's enough. But it would be nice to know whether they're going to commit to that, because otherwise that film almost feels a bit pointless. Don't know. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice that they've made reference to
it. So Jen's unable to find a job, but is offered a position by opposing counsel Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway, GLK and H, and impulsively accepts, bringing along her best friend Nikki Ramos as a paralegal. Now, the GLK and H is actually quite an interesting Easter egg. It stands for Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway. While Holloway is already present in the series as a recurring supporting character, the names of the firm's other three co-founders have deep ties to the golden age of Marvel.
Ah.
Martin Goodman was the original publisher of Timely Comics, which later became known as Marvel, and the first ever issue of Marvel Comics in 1939. Bit of history. Lieber and Kurtzberg are the birth names of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, who, under their more famous pen names, co-created the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Black Panther, and the Incredible Hulk, amongst many, many others. First appearing in Dan Slott and one Bobillo's She-Hulk #1 in 2004, GLK&H is a significant part of She-Hulk's publishing history and the perfect firm to handle the increasingly offbeat world of superhuman lore in the MCU.
There we go.
Dan Slott is actually quite a renowned Marvel writer, and I know my other half's got the I think it's like the big omnibus. Quite affordable. I think it's only like 40, 50 quid for, I mean, I'll say when you look at some of the prices, some of these omnibuses, that's quite cheap.
Yeah.
And it's a good, I'd probably say it's a good starting point if you ever sort of want to get into current She-Hulk stuff. On Jen's first day, GLK&H partner Holden Holloway informs her that he wants her to head up the firm's new superhuman law division and work as She-Hulk full-time. So she can't be there as Jen Walters. She has to be the Green Giant. Her first case is to represent Emil Blonsky, or the Abomination, at his parole hearing. Though initially reluctant due to Blonsky's past attempt to kill Banner, Jen gets Bruce's approval and accepts the case as he departs inside a Sicarian spaceship. Bye, Bruce. And another little Easter egg here. Finally, while Bruce is on the ship, he tells Jen that he and Emil put their troubled past behind them. Bruce says, "I'm a completely different person now," literally. Now, this could be a reference to the fact that the original Incredible Hulk movie, Bruce was played by Edward Norton and not Mark Ruffalo.
I still stand by. I think Ed Norton would have been a better casting, but I appreciate he's a challenging person to work with. So maybe it's for the best. But I think his depiction of Bruce Banner was brilliant. I loved it.
Mark Ruffalo's got some serious acting chops, but I don't know enough of sort of Bruce Banner from the comics to sort of really make comment, but I trust your judgment.
Many others wouldn't. But yes, I'm sure it worked out all right in the end.
And lastly, to wrap up this episode, Walter soon learns that Blonsky apparently escaped from prison and participated in an underground fight club. So again, we're tying back to Shang-Chi, where we see Wong take Emil into that big chamber in, was it Hong Kong?
No.
Was it Macau?
Macau, yeah.
Oh, that's over the water, isn't it?
Yeah, it is over the water. Just a short ferry ride, so you're close enough.
So yeah, that's the first time we get to Shang-Chi, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Any particular unfavourite moments in this one?
This pacing felt off. You know, the fact of Banner then got into a spacecraft and flew off. It's almost like he's here, he kicks it off, and then he's gone. And whilst not everyone, but a lot of people are going off planet and they're whizzing away, it's still quite a big thing. Although he's not an Avenger or he's not actively, superheroing, I think, it's still a big thing to jump on the ship and then to go. So for it just be a passing comment, I think was a little bit odd. And that's going to kind of predicate what I'm going to say at the very end in the final episode, which I think is very, very odd. And they clearly need to wrap up and try and get another storyline up and running. But I don't know, it just felt very, very quick. Nothing wrong with it, but the pacing was just, it was at odds with, I thought, it was a very well-paced first episode of pilot. The second one, I think, moved it up again. I don't think it needed it because I think then the pacing of subsequent episodes was off. I think they tried to cover too much this one, but it was enjoyable. As you say, it had nice links to the other films, either directly or indirectly. So I can't fault it too much, but the pacing I think was a bit odd.
Yeah, it felt like one of the shorter episodes of the series. But that's, like I say, my only criticism, really. It sort of felt like once you'd started it, it was over. But
Yeah.
I mean, 9 episodes to flesh out a series, I think, is quite a lot. But
What do we know?
unfortunately, Alex, we don't make the decisions here.
We don't. A robot does, apparently.
Kevin.
Mm.
Oh, boy. Episode 3, The People versus Emil Blonsky. So Jen confronts Blonsky, who explains that he was removed from his cell by the Sorcerer Supreme Wong, and that he returned to prison willingly afterwards, which is true. He went back. Didn't have to, but he did. While she attempts to contact Wong, news of her appointment at Blonsky's lawyers stirs up public controversy. Wong meets with Jen and agrees to testify at Blonsky's parole hearing, during which Blonsky demonstrates his ability to remain in control as the Abomination. Blonsky is released on parole, but is forbidden from transforming again. I think they tag him, don't they?
They do, yeah.
Cool. Meanwhile, Jen's former colleague, Dennis Bukowski, approaches the Superhuman Law Division for a case involving his ex-girlfriend, Runa, who turns out to be a shape-shifting light elf from New Asgard, who defrauded him by impersonating Megan Thee Stallion, the pop star that neither of us have heard of. The case is assigned to Jen's co-worker, Augustus Pug Pugliese, and Walter helps Pug win the case. Whilst participating in a televised interview, Jen is attacked by the Wrecking Crew, a 4-man criminal group consisting of the Wrecker, Pole Driver, Bulldozer, and Thunderball, who are armed with a stolen Asgardian construction tool and were hired by an anonymous client to steal a sample of her blood. But Jen is able to overpower them. Quite an interesting scene.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of this is such like a I don't understand why men felt the need to go on social media and saying this is unrealistic, because it happens every goddamn day. You know, women are out and about any time of the day and they seem to get attacked. It's actually a storyline. This is a real guilty pleasure of mine. So I watch Hollyoaks in the evenings, sit down with my dinner, watch Hollyoaks. Sounds really sad, but do you know what? I enjoy it because it's relevant. And despite some of the cheesy, ridiculous storylines, it actually sort of combats some.
There are some tough storylines, definitely, for sure.
There are some tough storylines, and they've just done a storyline on a character who's walking home at night, and then she gets attacked. It's quite horrible, but yeah, some men seem to think it's okay to go out on social media going, "Oh, this would never happen." It fucking does.
Yeah, it does too often.
But you know, not all women are superheroes. Can turn into a 6'7" giant and kick the shit out of 4 blokes, which was quite cool actually. I quite enjoyed that scene, just lobbing them up against the wall and they leg it.
Yeah, and I was confused at this point because so much has happened and so much the pacing was a little bit odd that I didn't know whether that was the big bad.
Yeah,
were the wrecking crew going to be, come back later? Are they going to be like the villains of the show? It turned out not to be, but I didn't know what role they had to play, and it was very short lived. I did like the tongue-in-cheek, kind of lighter storyline of the Light Elf. I thought it was funny, and it was done out of money, and how these beings are being held accountable in the real world with human earthly laws. I enjoyed it. Light humor, good fun.
Yeah, no, agreed. Episode 4, Is This Not Real Magic?
And I just want to say, Dan, this is probably my second most favourite episode.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
I look forward to hearing why. So Donny Blaze, who was a magician at Mystic Castle, who was expelled from Comatage for misusing his powers, sends an audience member named Madison King to another dimension where she makes a deal with a demon before being transported to Wong's home in Kamatage. Now, one wonders if this demon is going to be, oh God, what's the devil's name in Marvel, Alex? Mephisto.
Mephisto, yeah.
I wonder if it was Mephisto she had to make a deal with.
Hmm. Some people are saying it might be, but they also tease the Mephisto is going to be during end of phase 5, maybe, as they go to more mystical stuff. Who knows at this stage? We don't know.
We thought we were going to get him in one division, and we never did. So who knows? Another teaser, and it's probably not, because we know in Doctor Strange as well. There's all kinds of weird shit, demons, and yeah, it's madness. But there is one Easter egg which someone, God knows who this eagle-eyed fan was, but they picked out. If you look very closely at Donny Blaze's jewellery, you'll see that he's wearing a bird skull necklace that looks like the skull of Khonshu, which is Moon Knight's Egyptian's god of the moon.
Yeah.
Is Donny secretly a disciple of Khonshu, or does he just think the bird skull necklace looks cool? We already know he has a tendency to mess with forces he doesn't understand. You know, just casually sending people into another dimension.
Yeah.
Now, Wong approaches Jen and asks for her help in making an example of Blaze so that people like him will not be able to misuse the mystic arts. So they file a suit against Blaze and the Mystic Castle's owner, Cornelius P. Willows. Meanwhile, Jen creates a profile on a dating app in the hope of expanding her social life, but has little success until she changes it into a profile for She-Hulk. Blaze accidentally unleashes a swarm of demons at one of his shows, but Wong and Jen send them back before threatening Blaze and Willows into complying with a cease and desist order. The next day, Jen learns that Titania has been freed and is filing a lawsuit against her, having trademarked the name She-Hulk.
Now, I really enjoyed this episode for a number of reasons. Since really Doctor Strange, the first one, we hadn't really seen people being inducted into the Kamatage. We hadn't really seen what happened when you're not a successful sorcerer. And so it's really interesting to see someone who's gone through that journey, isn't like Wong, isn't like Stephen, and ends up, I guess, flunking wizard school, and still continues to use the dark arts for, entertainment purposes, and has really no care in the world. He can open up portals, chop people through, doesn't really care, and unleashes his demons upon the world. But I think it's really interesting that there is another side to people who go and seek out Kamatage and actually are not always quite so successful, don't end up staying. And I think that's quite an interesting aspect, which we haven't really seen too much before. And then again, the fight scene. So Wong gets his hands dirty. He goes from Kamatage into this theatre and fights alongside She-Hulk. And it's a bit of fun, but it just shows another bit of action, which I think misses to some extent throughout the season. There's lots of talking, quite rightly too. It doesn't all have to be action, but this was quite a good set of action scenes. But it still plays into my theory, Dan, about phase 4 and what's going on with Wong. Wong is at the center of it all, Dan.
Is the thread.
He is in everything. He crops up in everything, where really he could be crowbarred into it. I wonder whether he's a force of good or evil.
Interesting.
But anyway, I'm enjoying it. Really good episode. And it just fleshes out more of that mystic arts, which we haven't really seen an awful lot of. Of course, we have now got Spider-Man, No Way Home, which obviously had some in there, mystic arts. We then had Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness, but there's demons and there's portals and stuff, which is impacted in the real world. They don't get transported away. This here and now, and I quite like that. So it's quite good.
Little flying impy creatures they look like.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Donny Blaze, when you sort of compare him to some of the students you see in Doctor Strange 2, for example, He really reminds me of the rebel you used to get at school that would dance around on tables and scream and
Yeah,
shout
the
like a
clown.
yeah. That's literally what or who Donny Blaze reminds me of.
Were you a clown at
Sure.
school, Dan?
No, I was well behaved, just easily led.
Oh, led astray.
A lot of the time, yeah. That's
Oh,
probably why I probably didn't do that well at school, but I did all right. I probably could have done better if I wasn't, easily influenced by the rebels.
alcohol, drugs, and rock and roll.
I wouldn't say it was probably that bad.
Oh,
Skateboarding around the school, maybe, and you know, one of the antics we used to get up to. So our school was like an eight shape. So
all
you'd
right.
have the quads where we'd hang out in, but you had the fields either side of the school.
Mm.
So what we would do, one of us would go on one side into the field, and a few of us would stand in the quad, and we would have to look through one of the head of subjects offices to sort of gauge where we all were, and then we'd lob a piece of fruit over the roof, and
Oh, right.
and the people on the other side would have to catch it. Thankfully, we never got caught out, but it's just one of those stupid things we sort of got up to.
So what you're saying is, there's over time there were lots of mouldy fruit sat on the roof because you kept on lobbing it over and missing.
Thankfully, we had a friend who had quite a good arm, and he did get the fruit over the roof. Whether
Wow.
we caught it or not, different question. I can't
Mm.
remember. Long time ago.
Hijinks.
What about you? Were you a rebel at school?
No, I was a prefect, Dan.
Hey,
Yeah, yeah, proud as well. You got a little badge, it's a little shield, and it said prefect. I was a hall monitor. You're given different jobs, and you could be. I don't know if prefects are a thing now. I guess we've got to ask our listeners. Tell us if prefects are a thing when you were at school. On topic podcast at gmail.com. And a really rubbish job. So some prefects, there was this group of like 12 of them, of us. And I think there was one or two that were just in charge of the library. Now, not a lot goes on in the library. Not a lot of people frequent the library because it's a library at school. That's not where things are interesting and things are at. And all they had to do was just stand in front of the library at break at lunchtime and make sure people weren't going in there that didn't have a place to be in there. That's boring. But we were in the corridor, me and my best mate at school. And you'd see fights going down, and then teachers come rushing out and stand in front of the door and stop the kids from rushing through the corridors or running through. You had to tell people to stop running. You turn a blind eye to certain things and have a chat. And yeah, it's just good fun. It was more of a case of you put it in your national record of achievements. You have one of those things, the purple leather bound thing that you're
yeah, still
told is
got
really
it.
important. You still got it.
Still got it. I keep all my certificates in there. Even now, when I do
Yeah.
like a course at work, get the certificate, and I always shove it in that folder.
Pride of place in that purple folder. But they, again, if listeners don't know what this is I guess it was a national thing where every school had them. God knows how much it cost, and you're supposed to put all of your achievements in that. I guess like Duke of Edinburgh Award stuff in there. You put in your I don't know,
School
all these
attendance
certificates.
awards. Oh, you got
Yeah, yeah.
100% at the end of the year. Well done.
And then you're supposed to use that then to take you further in your career. I guess if you're going to go to a secondary, a higher education, or change schools, you're supposed to take it with you. But no one ever asked for it.
No.
So you end up having these random folders which are partly completed because you forgot you even had it, and then no one ever looked at it. But apparently, anyway, being a prefect was supposed to be putting you in good stead for your college. Where I was always ever going to go to the sixth form, which was in most of my high school. So I was never going to need to apply for it in the traditional sense. And then universities don't give a shit, do they? It's all about your
No.
A levels. So
No. The only time I've actually found use in my record of achievement folder was when I applied for my current job, and they
oh,
wanted
really?
proof of my qualifications. So they wanted to see my GCSEs that I'd got, my diploma, my that thing you get at university, that pointless bit of paper you spend 10 grand on. I spent a lot
And
of
the
money.
rest.
And the rest, yeah. I mean, I only did 1 year, Alex. I was quite fortunate not to have huge debts. Although, given how much I pay off these days, it's probably gone in the blink of an eye when the interest hits again. So,
Mm,
yeah, sad times.
there we go.
Sad times. Anyway, we've digressed. Nothing unusual here on the topic.
Oh no.
On to episode 5. Mean, green, and straight poured into these jeans.
Mm-mm.
What a mouthful for an episode. Titania has trademarked the name She-Hulk for a new line of beauty products, which angers Jen. Holloway warns Jen that she needs to deal with the situation quickly and assigns Mallory Book as her attorney for the case. Nikki and Pug come up with a plan to acquire a superhero outfit for Jen from Luke Jacobson, a highly exclusive tailor who provides clandestine services for heroes. While Book and Walters countersue Titania, claiming that she is illegally exploiting She-Hulk's fame for profit. Jen is annoyed to discover that Todd Phelps, one of her unsuccessful dates, is also a client at her firm, and this helps her realise that she can use her dating app history to establish a past record of her identifying as She-Hulk before Titania tried to gain the trademark.
Mm.
Using her past dates, testimonies, Jen wins the case and establishes a tentative friendship with Book. Walters later acquires her new customised outfits from Jacobson, but not without a little tease, if I remember. Did we see the Daredevil mask in
Indeed.
this one?
Yes, in the box, wasn't it?
Yeah, sort of mid-season filler, really, that episode. Sometimes you get lucky like Cobra Kai where you hit the mid-season and it's something like massive that sort of carries you to the end, but this was just a bit like, it's all right.
Yeah.
No Easter eggs either in that episode, sadly. Or there might be, but nothing relevant.
We didn't catch them, no.
Episode 6, Just Jen. Jen is invited to be a bridesmaid at her old friend Lulu's wedding. When she arrives, however, she is disappointed to find that Lulu wants her to present as herself, not She-Hulk, and saddles her with numerous pre-wedding duties. Boring. Titania is also present as she is dating one of Lulu's groomsmen. Jen bonds with Josh Miller, a friend of the groom, but Titania attacks her. Following a brief fight, Titania breaks down and storms off. Quite a good little fight scene.
It is, yeah.
Following a brief fight, Titania breaks down and storms off. Meanwhile, Book and Nikki work on a divorce case for a superhuman called Mr. Immortal, who has repeatedly faked his death to get out of several marriages. Also jumping out of the building where he gets fed up and falls through onto a car. That happened. Compounding the problem, 8 of his previous spouses all filed suits against him upon learning his secret via an online video displaying his powers leaked by a website called Intelligentsia. After resolving the case, Book and Nikki discover several death threats directed at She-Hulk on Intelligentsia's message board, which is maintained by an individual known as Hulk King. Elsewhere, scientists working for Hulk King spy on Jen and plan another attempt to steal a blood sample from her.
Mm.
Can I just make a point here? All this stuff about attempting to steal her blood, it just never really came to anything.
No.
It was just a bit pointless.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of did it in there. This could happen, but didn't happen because actually there was too much going on, and they then end up going to see Kevin Feige. But I guess it's already been done. It was already done with the Abomination. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, and that's what I mean. I got the Wrecking Crew, although that kind of felt a little bit like Spider-Man Homecoming, you know, with humans getting hold of alien tech, not really know what they're doing with it, but causing havoc. And then this whole blood thing it had been done before. I don't know. You're right, it didn't go anywhere in the end, and it was all a kind of a dream. Just a bit odd.
Yeah, very strange. Episode 7, The Retreat. This was actually one of my favourite episodes, just because
It
it
was quite
was
good, actually.
tonally different.
Yeah.
And I thought Emil Blonsky was brilliant in this episode.
Yes. Yeah.
Jen goes on several dates with Miller, but he basically just disappears, ghosts her after they sleep together. And unfortunately, that happens quite often these days. People getting ghosted.
Mm.
Ever been ghosted?
No, not really. When we were growing up, we had text messaging stuff, but that was about it. Whereas social media, it's far more obvious to be ghosted than back in the day when you had your 3310 and you didn't have enough credit and you may not have had enough signal in order to get the text message. And
Classic phone.
yeah, so ghosting wasn't really a thing then because you just may not have picked up the message because the infrastructure wasn't there. Whereas these days, it's quite obvious if someone's ignoring you because it's going to be on social media as well as WhatsApp and everything else. So
yeah,
I don't think it ever was because I think it was a thing then.
Yeah. Anyway, just thought I'd ask. I was
why not?
interested.
Yeah.
Just for record, I've not ghosted anyone either,
As far as you're aware.
as far as I'm aware. While anticipating a text from him, she receives a call from Blonsky's parole officer, who informs her that the inhibitor that stops Blonsky from turning into the abomination is broken, and that he wants her to accompany him to Blonsky's spiritual retreat, Summer Twilight, to check on him. When the officer leaves, Manbull and oh Christ Almighty, they've done it.
Aguila?
Aguila, that's it. El Aguila accidentally destroy her car, having a little scrap with each other, forcing her to stay there until it can be towed away. Despite the retreat lacking internet and cell coverage, that signal for us Brits, Jen continues to nervously await a response from Miller. She attends a group therapy session with Blonsky, Manbull, El Aguila, Porcupine, Saracen, and Wrecker. Again, he's just like, come off the streets from attacking her into a retreat, apparently, where she's convinced to delete Miller's contact information and let go of her feelings towards him. And so a little bit on the background of these superheroes, Alex.
Oh, yeah.
Manbull and Al Aguila, who are processing their respective traumas by beating each other up. You get it? Because one's a bull and the other's dressed as a matador.
Mm-hmm.
Manbull, who has horns and super strength, is the product of a government experiment, while Al Aguila is a mutant, there we go, there's that word again, who can manipulate bioelectricity. Now, in the comics, Manbull was originally one of Daredevil's opponents, while Al Aguila fought Iron Fist. Saracen, here in the series, really departs from the comics, in which Saracen is a mercenary who goes up against Punisher. Now, in She-Hulk, Saracen thinks he's a vampire. Is he a vampire? We don't know. Will he return in Blade, if that even happens? Who knows? And a little bit on Porcupine. He's a villain who's afraid to take off his spiny porcupine suit. But in the comics, there were two villains who took on the mantle of Porcupine, but both of them were low-level criminals who could shoot spines and other objects.
Wow.
Other objects is a little bit open-ended there, so I don't quite know what they're shooting.
And don't want to know either.
No. But if anyone knows who or what Porcupine is shooting, please let us know. We'll put the contact details in at the end. It was revealed that 3 days earlier, Miller secretly cloned Walter's phone and stole a sample of blood on behalf of Hulk King after sleeping with her.
Dun, dun, dun.
Few more Easter eggs here, which is quite fun. Jennifer leaves Blonsky's retreat and her newfound friends in the tow truck that has finally come to claim her damaged Prius. The truck company Slot Towing. Now, of course, this is a little nod to Dan Slott. Dan Slott's tenure on She-Hulk, which I mentioned earlier, began with a 12-issue 2004 series and includes a run from 2005 to 2007. Served as a major inspiration for She-Hulk Attorney at Law. It was Slott who introduced the idea of Jennifer as a practicing lawyer for the superhero community, and he co-created supporting characters Mallory Book and Augustus Pugliese. The Retreat pays further tribute to the influential creator. Upon close inspection, the name tag on the tow truck driver's shirt appears to read Daniel or Dan. Now, Dan Slott was very vocal on Twitter one day. He took a little break, came back to find people slating the show. Now, he said this: mostly been offline for the past few days, bummed by the sheer volume of She-Hulk hate coming from the obvious quarters. That's weird to me, a guy saying the show should have been more like the run I worked on, or that I wouldn't approve. And in capitals, he put, I love the show, and it was my run, and it was like my run.
Mm.
So, man approved.
Very good.
On to episode 8. Got some more Easter eggs in this one. Jen takes a new case representing Eugene Patilio, also known as Leapfrog, who wishes to sue Jacobson for giving him a faulty super suit.
Yeah.
Jacobson is represented by, here we go, Matt Murdock in court and wins the case due to Patilio inadvertently revealing that he disobeyed Jacobson's instructions by using jet fuel in his suit. What a dickhead. Now, this is actually the first time we have an acknowledgement of the Sokovia Accords.
Yes.
In the courtroom scene, Matt mentions that the Sokovia Accords have been officially repealed. The Sokovia Accords were introduced in Avengers Civil War. No, it was Captain America Civil War.
It was.
Captain America, not
It's
Avengers.
like an Avengers film, but yes, allegedly Captain America, although, let's face it, it wasn't really.
It was Avengers 2.5. After the destruction wrought by superhero fights in Lagos and Sokovia, we don't know why exactly they've been repealed. Was it because of the blip, or the snappening, as we prefer to call it? Or is it because there's currently no Avengers lurking around? Afterwards, Patilio contacts Jen asking for help against an unknown assailant. Jen arrives and battles the assailant, who she discovers to be Murdock as his superhero persona, Daredevil. I really like this fight scene. Happens in a car park.
It does. And this is probably my most favourite episode because we see a lot of action, but we see a familiar Matt Murdock looks a little bit different. And I don't know whether we see any real difference from now versus what we'll see when we see Daredevil Born Again. He's definitely a lighter, less broodier version. And one would suspect he wasn't around during the snapping because the Kingpin clearly was. And they've got a different version of Kingpin, of course, in Hawkeye. But then where is Matt Murdock in his world, in his place? At the end of, was it season 3? Was it 3 seasons of Daredevil?
Yes, there was. Yeah.
So he seems more happier, less broodier, and obviously out of Hell's Kitchen. And I liked it. Charlie Cox is phenomenal. I love watching him. I think he's made for the role, and he's phenomenal as a talent. And I think the action and the pace were brilliant in this one. It's nice to see as you say, the fight scene at the beginning, and just how immediately familiar they become as they try and uncover this plot thread of who's the baddie and how it all comes back to their jostling in the courtroom. I thought it was really well put together.
Yeah, no, agreed. Murdock reveals to Walters that Patilio kidnapped Jacobson, and the two work together to rescue the latter before sleeping together. And again, I know a lot of people complained about the scene where, he creeps here and he starts beating the shit out of people, and then Jen just jumps through the ceilings and just takes everyone else out. But the last time I looked, the show had She-Hulk on
Well,
the front
people
of it.
moaning about that.
Yeah, they were saying, "Oh, they've taken it away from Daredevil."
It's not his show.
Exactly.
Fuck off.
If you want it, you have to wait until Daredevil Reborn, or
You
just
wouldn't
go back watch the Netflix shows. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you wouldn't expect to. I'm going to really eat my words when he shows up in an Avengers film, but right as of right now, you would not expect Daredevil to lead a battle with an overpowered superhero. The different skill sets.
Yeah.
You might say that with Spider-Man if it was Daredevil program because they're street level. We talked about this before, don't we? Street level heroes belong together. And whilst she's clearly of a different ilk.
Mm.
And if you have a corridor scene with Matt Murdock and you're going to have Jen Walters, she's always going to come crashing in. I don't see how that could have played out any other way other than the way it did.
Yeah.
Again, just people wanting to moan about it. I don't see there's anything wrong with it personally.
Yeah, no, there were people moaning on social media, which I just find bonkers.
Wow.
But again, it's the She-Hulk show. It's not the Matt Murdock show, unfortunately. And they were saying that they changed Matt Murdock. They sort of took away that grittiness and stuff. But when you look at the the TV series, especially, they're all tonally different.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have a gritty Matt Murdock in a sort of comedic, upbeat, fourth wall breaking show. It's just not going to work. It just doesn't. You just wouldn't have a Netflix version of Matt Murdock in She-Hulk. It just wouldn't work. But that's my gripe with idiots on the internet. Seems to be happening a lot lately, Alex. It seems to come up in like most episodes these days.
Yeah. Well, not everyone can be satisfied, but
no.
I do think when you're watching a She-Hulk TV program and then you moan about another character representation not taking the limelight, I think is a little bit short-sighted.
Yeah. The next day, Jen attends the Southern California Law Awards Gala, where she accepts a Female Lawyer of the Year award. But the gala is interrupted by Intelligentsia broadcast, which smears Jen's reputation by displaying footage of her in bed with Miller. I mean, that's almost like revenge porny, isn't it?
Yeah, I did think it was a bit wrong.
Yeah. Briefly losing control, Jen goes on a rampage, destroying the gala stage and attempting to capture a nearby Intelligentsia member, only to be apprehended by the Department of Damage Control. Here we go, they're back again. Didn't we last see Damage Control in Ms. Marvel?
Yes, they were chasing her down. Yeah.
A couple of Easter eggs. Near the end of the episode, Jen wonders why they're doing the gala scene in this episode instead of the first one. She says, is it the kind of twist that's like, oh, there's another Hulk, except this one's red? I mean, it's not a huge Easter egg because this person hasn't popped up yet. But this could be a reference to the Red Hulks in the comics. Of course, we've got Thaddeus Ross and his daughter Betty. Since this is Jen's show and not Bruce's, let's assume she's talking about Betty and not Thaddeus. In the comics, Betty is infused with gamma radiation and then sent to kill Bruce. However, she later becomes a hero, and Doctor Strange eventually recruits her to join the Defenders. Over the years, Betty calls herself Red Harpy, then Red She-Hulk, then just Harpy. A little bit of comic book knowledge there. Wasn't Thaddeus Ross the guy that was played by William Hurt?
Yes. Exact same guy, yeah.
Now replaced by Harrison Ford.
Apparently. Is that official or is that semi-official? I know they were talking with him about the casting, but I don't know whether it's been officially. Has it yet?
I think it's semi-official. We might have to dig up on that one if we do a future Marvel episode. Well, I think we probably will.
I think we probably will, Dan.
Because, Wakanda Forever is out on the day of this release, so I imagine we'll probably be at the cinema in the next week or two.
Yeah.
On the Go episode and another big review. I'm quite looking forward to it. Ready to get the tissues out and probably have a good cry.
Yeah, it's cathartic. I think we all need it.
Yeah. And then finally, just to round it all up, we've got episode 9. Whose show is this? Well, we know it's the She-Hulk show because I've just had a moan about it.
Indeed.
Just to open up with an Easter egg, this episode begins with a riff on the original opening sequence of the Incredible Hulk from
Oh, it
1978,
does. I
and it's
liked it.
phenomenal. It's so
Yeah,
good.
it's very good.
This episode is tonally brilliant. And I think you watched it just before I did, because you WhatsApped me and said, "Have you seen this week's She-Hulk?" I was like, "No, not yet. I've just got in from shopping, blah blah blah." Be on the case a minute. You went, "It's genius."
It is, and I wonder where they were going with it. And then it's like they pulled a rug from underneath you. And it's the first time I've looked at it and gone, I'm not sure about this ending. This is supposed to be a finale. And then it hits you in the face. And it's so bananas, so at
Mm,
odds with anything we've ever seen. It works. I still don't know why. It's really odd, but
yeah,
it works, and it is genius. It's right on the money. It's exactly what the character would do, and it speaks to the audience, which you'll talk about in a second. But
yeah.
it's really good, and I think it's bold. It was a very bold move, especially to end on it. Yeah, it's very clever, very very clever.
So Jen is released by damage control custody, but is forced to wear an inhibitor to prevent her from transforming, and loses her job at GLK&H. So again, she's been sacked twice in 9 episodes. Nikki and Pug infiltrate an intelligentsia event where they learn that Phelps created intelligentsia and reveals he is Hulk King. And Blonsky, as the Abomination, is serving as a motivational speaker. Jen arrives at the event and confronts Phelps, who injects himself with her blood and transforms into a Hulk. After Titania and Bruce unexpectedly appear in the ensuing fight, a confused Jen destroys her inhibitor and breaks the fourth wall to confront the show's writers in Marvel Studios assembled.
Mm.
She meets with Kevin, K.E.I. Oh, I can't even spell. It's in my notes.
Good stuff.
K.E.V.I.N, an
There we go.
artificial intelligence that claims to be in charge of the Marvel Cinematic Universe's storyline decisions and persuades it to rewrite the finale, to which it reluctantly agrees. Now, at one point, I genuinely thought there was something wrong with my Disney Plus
Yeah,
because the screen popped up. I went, fuck, what's going on? And then She-Hulk just comes out and straight into another window she goes.
yeah, it's really
Walk through the
clever.
offices.
It's like when you press back on your remote and it goes back to the menu, doesn't it? And it fades back to the colourful screens and the panels. And you're right, it just hangs there. And I was like, oh, yeah, has my app crashed?
Mm.
And then, as you say, she then peers out of the screen, flings herself into her episode, and yeah, it's clever, really clever. And that's where the roller coaster really starts for this one.
Yeah, I didn't actually put anything in my notes, but if I recall, when she is talking to Kevin, there's a moment where I think she says you must be busy doing something else, and you get like the Wakandan drums,
Yes,
and then I think she teased a potential Hulk film.
yes.
But we'll see. I don't think Universal have got long left with the rights to the Hulk, and I think it's going back to Marvel sort of fairly soonish.
Ching.
Indeed. So more cash in the bank. They just need to get Spider-Man back now, but I don't see that happening for a very long time, if
No.
at all, in our lifetime anyway. Which is a shame because Sony are doing absolute dog shit with Spider-Man. It
Mm,
only seems to work out when Kev Feige's on board. Or it was now apparently artificial intelligence.
indeed.
Now, where are we? Returning to our show, she finds Phelps and Blonsky have been arrested. While celebrating with her family in Murdoch, Bruce returns from the car with his son, Scar. A little Easter egg. In the comics, Hulk takes over Sakaar after his time as a gladiator, and he has a son with a woman named Kyra. I think I've got that right. Scar's growth has artificially accelerated, which is presumably why he's a young adult instead of a 10-year-old in the MCU. So where does Scar go from here? Are we getting a World War Hulk, or is the MCU going to an entirely different direction? So we'll have to wait and see. After regaining her job and being cleared of all charges, Jen vows to continue her work as a lawyer and a superhero. And then we get a mid-credit scene where Wong breaks Blonsky out of prison to take him to Comatage. Again, what is Wong up to?
What is Wong up to, Dan? And that is the question.
And when are we going to see Blonsky again?
Quite. And I think I really didn't like Banner's return with his son.
Just out of the blue. Just happened.
It just feels like it's, I don't know, a crowbar teasing of something that I don't know, we didn't know we wanted or needed. And I don't know. It just felt like it was, there's no backstory, there's no explanation, just, oh, here's my son.
Yeah.
We're supposed to go, yeah, cool. And that's the whole point of it, and they'll explain it, and again, there'll be another father and son conflict because it's a Marvel film. And I don't have any issues with that. It's just a good backdrop of a story. But I don't know. To turn up I guess it's a She-Hulk program. You are going to have wacky instances. You are going to be having lunch with your family, with Matt Murdock as your boyfriend. You are going to get aliens walking in and celebrating, not aliens, but obviously, Scar, well, I guess he is an alien for a different planet, are going to walk in and join the party. It's going to be like that because it's her program, but I don't know. I don't feel it had a place in this. Does it make any sense? Like the spaceship coming down, they crash. There's no explanation of that. I know it will be later. That's fine. It starts with a chain of events, and then Banner then gets back onto the plane again. It's come back. Why? He's off, and then it comes back. He's got a son with him. It just, I don't know. It feels like it's forced, as in it needs to take Banner away from the situation, so that it wasn't to do with him, and then brought him back at the end, and he's now back into the MCU as a plot point, so that it was always going to be Jen. She can never call upon Banner. And people said, well, she's outside of her depths. And why was Bruce not there? Well, he was off planet. It just feels like it was a very convenient plot point, and or they're building for something which I don't think I care about, Dan. Really being honest, World War Hulk, whilst it kind of was a bit like what we're looking at in Ragnarok, wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether there's anything else that we want to see from that character anymore. We've seen him go off the ropes in Ultron. We've seen the world hate him, which is what is in the Ultimate Avengers comics, which is brilliant, by the way. And if you haven't read it, I still to lend it to you. But that's all about how Banner takes one for the team and ends up being a PR stunt. It goes wrong, and the world hate Banner, and they want to kill him. They want him to be euthanized. It's really quite a dark storyline. But we saw that or references in Ultron. We see him being banned at the end of that film. He then goes off to Sakaar and imprisoned as a gladiator. That's World War Hulk. Is there anything else we really want to see from that character? I don't know. I think it's run its course for me, but I might be eating my words in 5 to 10 years' time. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, they could just kept it interesting, maybe not brought Bruce back, just leave you guessing. Oh, he's gone off in a Sakarian ship. Okay. Where's Brucey baby gone?
Well, they did that in Ultron. It kind of worked. So why can't I do it again?
But yeah, it's just a bit forced, which is a shame. But critical response was actually quite good overall with the critics. So I've picked out a handful. Rotten Tomatoes, now they reported an approval rating of 85%, with an average score of 8 out of 10 based on 599 reviews. The site's critics consensus states, whether she's fighting bad guys, defending a client, or managing her messy social life, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law passes the bar for binge-worthy viewing. Well, I didn't binge it because I had to wait a week for the next episode. But I think a lot of the critics actually got 4 episodes before We did.
Yes, yeah, it did, yeah.
Which actually leads on to my next point. The series' first 4 episodes were reviewed by critics before they debuted. Daniel Feinberg, the Hollywood Reporter, called these episodes broad, bright, and eager to serve the audience with a wink and a nudge, though lacking stakes or a distinctive style. Well, I'd agree with that.
Mm.
We'll talk about our thoughts in a second. He felt the series writing for characters previously seen in more dramatic situations, and the Easter eggs and cameos would be divisive with viewers. And lastly, I picked out Joel Monique, The Rap, who called the series a delightful break from the cutesy family fun and intense heroic introspection of the previous Marvel Studios Disney Plus series, praising Maslany's performance and noting it was incredibly rewarding as a long-time fan of the franchise, as well as those who enjoy legal television series.
There we go.
So, what's your critical response, Alex? What are you saying?
Yeah, tonally great, a fresh take. I think it was successful. I think it was rushed in places. I think the CGI wasn't up to scratch, and I'm sure for the reason that you say they had to do what they had to do. But I would have much preferred they delayed it longer to make it looking more fitting with the Hulk that we know. But hey, we are where we are. I didn't get the big bad; it wasn't there. The fourth wall kind of made up for it at the very end, but was it enough? I don't know. What was the point? But then the inclusion of Matt Murdock, Daredevil, it worked, and I enjoyed it. It was fun. It didn't take itself seriously, and you could walk away going, "Yeah, that's okay." And I think that's all it was ever supposed to be. So I think, from that perspective, I think it was a job well done. It did what it was supposed to. It wasn't supposed to contribute to anything. It wasn't supposed to be like Loki, which kicks off Phase 4. It wasn't supposed to be WandaVision, which kicks off Strange 2. It's just existing, and I think that's okay. And I think that's what this series needs to be. It needs to be something that could just be what it was. It didn't have to contribute to the bigger, wider world of the MCU and move things forward. And that's why I think it is different, because every other series kind of riffs off things kind of ongoing in the world and in a serious tone, and it's a continuation of The Winter Soldier. It's a continuation of Civil War. It's this, it's that, this. It's just this. And that's cool. And I think for that, I applaud the bravery and the gamble that they played on it. Was it perfect? No. But I think they'll learn from it, and I think they'll refine it for next time. It's just a bit of fun, Dan. I think that's what it needs to be, and I think it was for me. How about you? What do you reckon?
First, I was going to say that's an excellent shit sandwich. So here's mine. Tonally, I thought it was very fun. It's different. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the series now on Disney Plus seem to be sort of drawing from the comics, and having that tonally different sort of feel, I guess, to them. And She-Hulk does sort of draw on that fun, and it does sort of feels fresh, I guess. It's different, It's not like watching Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is sort of gritty and sort of political, or Loki, which is like a cosmic time traveling epic. The only downside for me is that there is no big bad. Didn't really get the whole blood stealing thing, because by the end of it, it was just sort of null and void and just a bit pointless. But overall, yeah, it was fun. It's great as a standalone series. As you say, it doesn't really sort of carry on from anything. I mean, obviously you have Bruce sort of trains her up a little bit and then he buggers off, but that's it really. Some nice little tie-ins. It draws you back into Shang-Chi and the Eternals a little bit. A couple of little nods, which makes it exciting. Wolverine possibly lurking around. Yeah, it's all right.
It's okay.
It's average. It's not brilliant. It's not awful. I certainly don't know why it gets such bad flack on the internet. I genuinely don't think it's as bad as people make out.
It's because the internet, Dan. That's why.
I mean, thankfully, two of our listeners wrote in,
Oh yeah.
and their critiques pretty much in the middle as well. So, firstly, on Instagram, we had Rousseau. He said, "I think it's fine. Can't honestly complain. I'd give it a 7 out of 10 in all honesty." So where would you put it on the 1 to 10, Alex? What would you say?
Not far off. I'd say about 6 or 6.5.
Yeah, do you know what? I'd stick by a 7. It
Yeah.
had its moments. And then lastly, we got Dan. He said, "I really enjoyed She-Hulk from start to finish. It was a nice change of pace from the usual MCU stuff we have had, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next for She-Hulk."
Mhm.
So just to sort of before we wrap up on the She-Hulk, what do you think is next for She-Hulk?
Good question.
Where does she fit into this big wide universe of the MCU?
I don't know, Dan. She's, as I say, she kind of operates in her own kind of individual space. I can imagine there'll be more court cases. I really don't know. She's going to be featuring at some point towards the end of Phase 4, Phase 5. How the MCU will look then? Will the inhabitants of Earth 616 know that there's time travel shenanigans um, and big bads going on in the quantum realm? Probably not. Then will she? Because I don't think she'll feature in it. So yeah, perhaps much the same. But then, what's going to be the point? I really don't know, Dan. I think that's why it's quite an interesting one because it kind of operates in its own kind of world, doesn't it?
Yeah, be interested to see where she fits in, and will she be breaking the fourth wall wherever she appears, or is that just a She-Hulk thing? But yeah, I genuinely, I'm not too sure. But yeah, I guess that wraps up for this week's episode.
Mm.
What's next?
Probably Black Panther, Dan. I reckon it's out. It's out this week as of recording, so we get to see it very soon. But yeah, we will take any requests. We've got a long list of things to get through, but also we've got a long back catalogue. So by all means, people can have a browse, have a look. But if people have a recommendation or a request, then we are all ears.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we've got the challenge from Dan in last week's episode, or I'll say last week, the previous episode, which was the Mighty Ducks.
Yes, it was. Yes,
I think we need to jump on that, and I don't know whether we review one film or if we do the lot. We'll have a talk off air. But for Christmas, obviously we're entering that season now, Alex. I'm getting quite excited. Yeah, one idea we've had recently is we go to the cinema and see Violent Night with David Harbour.
Does look very good.
It looks very gritty.
I like the idea of it.
And it looks like John Wick meets Santa Claus.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
I can just see us now sat in the cinema, just absolutely laughing our pants off. But look, if you want to get involved, if you want to give us some ideas, or if you see Black Panther before we do, we want your thoughts. You can get involved on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok on @thetopicpod. And we've got Gmail, which is on the topic podcast @gmail.com. And Alex, we've got WordPress and YouTube.
We do on topicpodcast.wordpress.com. Go over there, have a look at our website. Got our ugly mugs, our bios. You can stream and listen to our whole back catalogue, including the weekly roundup. And you can also visit our affiliate content site, Morbid and Mundane. Go have a look at some lovely t-shirts and beanies for this type of weather as we get into the wet and rainy and windy season. Perfect apparel for your clothing needs. But as I say, if you don't have a podcast preference, then you could always stream it from there. And also sign up to our newsletter. So go have a look, go over Playground, our website. And as you say, Dan, every week, every Thursday, we are due to release 2 episodes from our back catalogue. So hopefully at some point in Easter next year, 23, we'll be up to date. But every week we're releasing 2 episodes on YouTube. So you can go over there, subscribe, like our videos, and you can stream it and put it in the background as you work, walk, or play. So there's absolutely no excuse not to be up to date with your latest on the topic episode, because we're everywhere, Dan.
Time relevant, delicious, and sometimes a little left field. It's all good. I think it's time we did a left field episode. Although, to be fair, we did Halloween, didn't we, last episode?
Oh, that was good.
A weird, creepy one. It's probably a good one to dive into, even if you're not into, now Halloween's past. Go check it out. Go listen to some
definitely.
Spooky stories. Bit of history in there as well. It's all good fun. Well, that wraps up for this week. I'm off to go steal some Hulk blood, which I don't really know what I'm going to do with. I've been Dan.
And I'm putting some jet fuel in my rocket booster boots. I'm Alex.
And we'll see you next time.